It is day 3 of June, but we are up to the part of it's story time for Trish, and with Trish and Treasures of Darkness, we are reading. We're up to the part where we're leaving the watch house and being taken out to Wacol, Brisbane Women's Correctional Centre at Wacol. So, and you may notice I'm trying some different things with microphones and so on. So hopefully it'll get better and better as we go. All right, Tuesday, 27th of January. Eventually the time came for Amanda and me to be escorted back through the maze to the van secreted between the roller doors. It reminded me of the larger horse float trucks that you see on the road, the kind that has doors on the sides and little windows high up. Only these doors were too narrow for a horse. Now when I see a prison truck out and about, I wonder about the wretches inside and what misery they face. The other girls were not included in our trip to Brisbane Women's Correctional Centre, BWCC at Wacol, a western suburb on the outskirts of Brisbane. That's here in Australia. Instead, we shared the truck with some men. Handcuffed again, we climbed up through a side door into the metal cavity. The men were on the other side, separated by a metal wall, but we could see through a crack in the panels to talk a little bit. It disturbed us that they knew our surnames and wanted to stay in touch. They had been able to see the list of prisoners' names on the board behind where the officers had sat in their fishbowl, and that was creepy. So you'll hear the word fishbowl as we go through. A fishbowl is like an office, like a hub in the office where it was all glassed in, but they can see all around them. The officers could see all around them to see the prisoners. But there was a board behind them which had everybody's name, including ours, on it. So yeah, it's like we couldn't see the board where our pod was, but obviously they could, because prison caters for a whole lot more men than women. Okay. It was a long trip out to Wacol. We felt quite sick from the exhaust fumes that crept into the cavity where we sat. We entered the men's prison first. Oh, I can just see it in my mind. Between gates topped with razor wire that pulled up inside a secure shed. An officer escorted the men through a door. We were allowed out because the truck's air conditioning didn't work with the motor off and it was summertime. Our trip resumed. BWCC wasn't much further. It struck me as ironic that a prison would be surrounded by beautiful countryside with kangaroos grazing near the menacing layers of razor wire fencing. It's just weird to see that contrast. We pulled up in a shed like the earlier one. From there, we were ushered through a security door that oddly reminded me of the staff entrance at the rear of shopping centres. I'd often used such doors in my sales career. Perhaps my mind was trying to normalise my surroundings to preserve my sanity and minimise my apprehension. I don't know. Probably. So we entered a reception area where we waited once again. It could have been any office in any business except for the outfits. Women in officers' uniforms tapped on computers. Women in blue polo shirts and grey shorts cheerfully moved about. They welcomed us and helped find similar outfits for us. We were issued with uniforms and bedding in a white feed sack, like those long feed sacks, like Hessian sacks, but more wasn't Hessian. It was like a plasticky, fibrous thing, like a feed sack for farms. Like might have had chaff in it or something. So it was quite big. Where are we? Yeah, the kind you see filled with grain at a farm supply store. We were handed a brown paper bag containing a black and gold or generic labelled toothbrush, toothpaste. When I say black and gold, and I know you're in different countries, it's like the supermarket's own home brand, the plain label brand. So in this case, they were black writing with a gold background. Everything was black and gold. Toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, soap, and a plastic comb. It also contained a set of scuffed plastic picnic crockery and cutlery. We were about to have a cold shower before exchanging our watch house browns for the blue prison uniform. Each of us was photographed. There were questions asked and forms filled out, and the officer processing me came to a section called distinguishable markings. What tattoos do you have? No tattoos, I answered. Well, keep it that way. Getting any while you were here is an offence. I had no intention of getting a tattoo as a souvenir of my stay. But it wasn't long before I met people who accumulated them. One of the things that struck me as very odd was the number of female officers who looked like men. Their hairstyles and posture were masculine, and their body shapes were large or solid. And I, I naively thought they carried themselves that way because they must appear strong to the inmates. I thought they were just sort of posturing. It wasn't until later that I realised up to half of the officers were what people might call butch lesbians, and many of the inmates were too. It's one stereotype that proved to be true. Maybe different elsewhere, and look, I have lesbian friends, and I don't expect non-Christians to behave with Christian morals, be they gay or straight. However, it was unsettling to wonder why so many of them work in a women's prison. It's also unsettling to be strip searched by them. It just is. Anyway, I know it might not be politically correct, but that's how I felt at the time. If they're attracted to females and they're strip searching females, is it the same as being strip searched by a man? I don't know. But when you're the one who has no choice and you're powerless and you have to succumb to it, it is unsettling. Especially those who might have, there's so many women who've been sexually abused and having to be strip searched. It's really not nice. And I thought to myself, I wondered, was there a deliberate agenda, or were they part of a secret club that did favours for one another, like with Freemasonry? Jobs for the boys. I mean, the jobs for the girls. I didn't want to think about the spiritual strongholds behind that idea. It occurred to me that the officers were as imprisoned as me. I would leave one day, but they would be stuck here. Part of the processing was a quiz from the nurse. Apart from the usual general health questions, there was interest in whether I had ever been abused, molested, raped, addicted to drugs or any other substance, or treated for psychological disorders. No, I answered to all of them. Though I had been getting treated for stress and depression because of the upcoming court case and everything. But that didn't count because it wasn't actual schizophrenia or something like that. And I asked the nurse what, they didn't ask anything about my allergies. I asked the nurse what percentage of women coming through had been sexually abused, because very sexual questions. About 96%, she answered, give or take. I was surprised. I already knew that abused children often go off the rails and end up in prison or creating dysfunctional homes of their own. It occurred to me that had there been no abuse, women's prisons might be virtually empty. I guess they just have people like me in there. Often a woman's life is taken off course by abuse. Abuse creates despair, depression, self-loathing, emotional pain, and emotional pain is alleviated by promiscuity and drug use and bad company and getting involved in things. Eventually, crimes are committed to pay for drug use. Sometimes a woman is born into a family already in that cycle, and sometimes they are romantically linked to a criminal and are trapped in that culture. Many women are prisoners of their life choices without ever having gone to prison. Not just women. Lots of people are in their own kind of prison. Others are set free from the cycle. However, that doesn't happen without help. I have a new respect for ministries like Drug Arm and Teen Challenge, and I'd like to catch our young women before they make life-changing choices based on anger and rebellion. Our youth are of such infinite value, yet they're only a few choices away from greatness or destruction. Many feel powerless, and I'd like to remind them of the power of choice. They still need that extra support. So my urine test was clean, of course. You're hungry, she said. How did you know? I asked. Your ketones are up, see? She showed me the analysis chart on the slip. The nurse gave me a clean sample jar with lanolin in it for my damaged lips. I wanted to cover my whole face with it. I was assigned an identification number, D42586. I had to memorise that number as it would be used for my telephone code, my access to other areas of the prison, and my order forms. While I was at the watch house, Justin had driven out to the prison to submit visitor applications, that's my husband, and place some money in a trust account for me to use. The account paid for the toiletries I was given in the brown paper bag. I could place an order for stationery, a limited variety of sweets and personal items. Finally, we each clipped a plastic photo ID with our number on it to our collar, which permitted us to move between secure buildings when necessary. It was time to see our new home. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I'll leave it there, and tomorrow I'll read about turning up in our new home, which was called the induction unit. But we'll talk about that then. If you would like your own copy, by all means visit my website, speakertrishjenkins.com. Ministry website is trishjenkinsfaith.com. And if you would like your own copy, if you live in Australia, then you can message me, and you can PayPal $30. We'll include postage, and I'll be able to sign that copy for you. All right, so I will finish up now and see you tomorrow. Bye. Don't forget to comment and like. That's what everybody says. So if you want to do that, that'd be great. And feel free to share if you want to. That's okay. All right. Bye-bye.